All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Readers. I covered this sector, I feel like maybe a week ago, and there was a lot more market uncertainty going on. We were starting to get a little bit of that bipartisan bill rumor kind of starting to go, right? I think today is a good combination of the markets calming down. I think that bipartisan rumor is still very much alive and going, and I'm referring to this thing. We've talked about it mid last week. Yeah, give or take mid last week. But there's some sort of bill. They're calling it the groundworks for federal legalization. I know that was another post that another person put on a similar article. Like there was a lot to like there. But one thing is, when the markets aren't good, even good news isn't going to save it, right? Excuse me, sorry. What is starting to happen is the Dow Jones is starting to make its way back up, right? We were definitely under a lot of the moving averages, all the moving averages, right? But still haven't lost that 200 on the weekly, right? I know there's a lot of lines and I apologize, but Dow Jones is starting to look good. S&P 500 is starting to look good. Look, I'm excited for the moment. I think what's really going to matter is what happens if we go to the 50 moving average. Truth be told, I'm really counting on this thing to go all the way up to there. I'm hoping to make some good money on tickers when the markets are good, when the index is good, so will tickers, right? But that needs to probably break at the bare minimum before I start to really get a lot more comfortable and really get rid of. I still think I'm overall worried, but again, if we can go from here to the 50, that is a lot of really good movement. And really, that can take us from here to here, maybe even a little bit higher to maybe the old death line back at 280, right? So I'll talk about my target shortly, right? But I like that the sector was happy too, right? TLRY, not as big a percent, but hey, double digits are monster. I'm liking the fact that we're back to the 50-day volume line, right? When we look at SNDL, again, back to the 50 line, right? I know that doesn't look like a big percent, but hey, I'm starting to see that same 50. I see a night, right? I'm gonna get to the technical shortly. You know that, right? But there are things to like, right? MSOS, monster number, especially for a little ETF. But hey, monster volume. And again, I think to me, the US ETF getting this much volume really makes me think this bipartisan bill rumors are churning and hopefully giving a little extra gas to the tank, right? So I like it when the ETF, which should normally be quiet and calm, drops a monster percentage, almost as good as CGC, right? And then winding it out on what we're going to cover today is high tide. Look, it's not as big percentages, and really it's not as volume esque. But hey, this was a little bit noisier with the moving averages, and that is something I talked about. But hey, you're already over the 50, right? I wish the candles were a little bit stronger, but hey, the 200's right there. And again, I'll get to the technical shortly, right? But this is doing things that the other ones just haven't yet, right? So sprinkle a little volume, sprinkle a little sector strength, and that could be a nice thing here. So again, I think the last time I made the video, CGC was really, I think this was probably the last day. It was on the 16th. CGC was the only one that really dropped the good candle, and TLRY, you can see it. It had a good moment, but then doji down, right? When and I can go through the rest and show the same thing, right? This time, CGC does well, has good volume, and every single ticker that I just looked at in this sector is living in that goodness, right? So I like the sector strength. I like what looks like a good, calm gap in the market. I a couple of weeks ago said eye of the storm. Maybe this is the better eye of the storm, and hey, maybe it's the end of the storm, but I think I need a little bit more before I believe that, all right? So taking advantage when the calm is there is the goal, and hopefully this is our window right here, all right? So before we go any further and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we gonna do? Excuse me, sorry, I'm a little sick. Same thing we always do. We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our 5 moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online with your friends. Comment good or bad if you disagree. Look, anything you can do helps so much with these YouTube algorithms. But for real, just being here, giving me your time, oh, I'm so grateful for it. All right, so I think I'm going to chapter all of these together because really, I like what the sector is doing. There's a couple similarities, there's a couple differences, but overall, I'm going to give my targets for the way up. I'll give my just in case if it comes down targets as well, but I'm really liking what's going on. And it really is starting with the indices, right? When the index is calm, when the ocean is calm, it's easier to go deeper and deeper in the ocean, all right? So I like today's candle. Today's candle on the S&P 500 gets us over the 20 moving average. It gets us over the biggest candle to the left, and it's starting to make me believe there's actually a path for more, right? I love that. Dow Jones isn't as pretty, but it's not that bad. Look, we're basically on it maybe. Let me actually look. Look at that. It's a couple dollars over. The average 20 is at 40,087. We closed at 40,093. So by about $5, we're actually over the line. So hey, we'll take it. But again, that's a really nice spacing all the way up to here. Even if it only goes up to my golden line, right? That's not that bad a spacing, right? Obviously, I give more respect to these computer generated lines. I'm just some dude clicking, but knock on wood, my colored lines aren't that bad actually, you know. So Dow Jones looks good, nice little setups down here. S&P 500 looks good. I don't really look at Nasdaq when we look at this sector because there's not much tech here, right? This is literally farming, right? And selling at stores. You can't even e-com this stuff, right? So as long as the Dow and the S&P look good, I'm happy. And hey, they've looked better than they have in a while. That gets me more excited here. And I think today was a beautiful sector unison strength day. I don't think we've had that in quite a while, you know. I normally go TLRY and CGC 1-2. I think I really want to highlight MSOS one more time just in case you fast forwarded from the opening thoughts. Look, an ETF, an ETF is supposed to be slow and boring. An ETF is supposed to be single digit up, single digit down, basically stay a little bit up overall. That's kind of the goal, right? To drop a double digit day is crazy, right? And to me, I'm just guessing, this is just my educated thoughts here, right? Excuse me. I think it really stresses that this bipartisan Congress bill might be getting a lot of extra juice and rumor because that would be really good for all the US multi state operators, right? If the laws get better and they get better across all the states, not just the one or two, and you're in like 14 of them or whatever, right? That's where things will happen. And I think this might be an interesting signal about that bill. All right. I don't know what we were talking about on the other one, so it's a little bit harder to search. I was actually able to find this one at least. Let me see if I can find bipartisan. Can I find that? This was the other one. And this is where it said it is a. Was it this one or the other one? Oh man, I don't remember. But I know one of the headlines was Foundation for Federal Legalization, right? And I'm telling you, does it need to happen? I mean, obviously, I'd like it to happen, right? Just on the personal side, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to happen. We just need strong rumors, right? And I think the ETF starting to move hard makes me believe that, hey, that rumor might be churning, all right? So let's get to the technicals, right? Because that's what matters most. Look, on the last video, I said 133 money line. We drew it, and hey, most of the candle was over that line, which makes me happy, right? This was the money line because that was going to start to make me believe we're going to break that 50 moving average. Look at that red line. Look at that red line. Look at that red line. The last time we were over it was in October, November of last year, right? So a solid 6-month window, right? So that's a good candle over it. That's a nice positive MACD. That's even still a healthy 73 RSI, right? And I think more than anything, not only are we over or at the line, we're significantly better And we were actually better than that first volume day that the rumor of the bipartisan bill started, right? You can see volume was 15.3. We actually closed at 15.9 today with the volume, right? So volume is nice. MACD and RSI looks nice. We break the money line. It feels like red, red, red to green, green, green. That's maybe a candle, I guess I would say, put in your back pocket. But I think more than anything, it's that candle. And that pretty much lines up with the 100 moving average, right? So I think 197 is what I would be expecting. Maybe put that like 180 in your back pocket, right? But that's what it seems like it should be going to. Otherwise, I think I would use 133. I normally would say let's maybe come back down to the 8, but I think that was a good line right there. So let's use that for now. I see it continuing after hours. You know, I don't put too much emphasis on after hours, but I'm liking this daily right here, and really the weekly looks good because hey, this thing is giving me a path to 180. That's basically what we just said on the daily, right? Between 180 something and that 190 something. So I am liking CGC. TLRY, I didn't like as much because we were just under all 5 moving averages, right? Today, let me zoom in a little bit. That's a good candle right there. It's the smallest of wicks up there. When you look at it, the high of the day was 49 cents. This closed at 49 cents. I don't have the extra decimals to see exactly where it is, but that's a baby, baby wick right there, right? So I like that. This at least makes me start to believe that 54 cents is realistic. And really, that's a 5-cent move, which is basically a 10% window right there, right? And again, if this breaks, maybe there's even a move all the way up to 66 cents. Maybe I would throttle that and say 62 cents. I think that's a decent place right there. But I still very much like TLRY less than the others. I probably could have said that sentence a little better, but TLRY is my least favorite of all of them. At the bare minimum, this one's under more moving averages than all of them were, right? Most of them are at least over the 20. A couple of them were over the 50. I remember HITI was even trying to battle the 200, right? This one's barely over the first one. This is actually only the first candle over it too. So in a lot of ways, there's actually a bigger chance that this thing falls back under to like 46 cents. But I think I like that sector strength, and I think there's a shot for a 10% day tomorrow, right? Still a little deeper in the negative with the MACD. That's a pretty low RSI for sure. And like I said, I wanted like CGC's volume was better, right? I don't know the numbers. I wasn't really looking at it, but the average was here. We went all the way up there. That's almost double the average, right? TLRY basically sitting there, right? So I think that I just saw it. This is more than double the volume, but I like that 15 million more on CGC because we were only expecting about 6, right? So yeah, let's look at the weekly real quick. Cool. I think that lines up pretty well. This says 58 cents. I think that lines up very nicely to that first target right there of 54. So I think that's pretty good. And yeah, if that 58 breaks, I think that'll be the signal for a potential 62 or 66, right? So cool. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Let's come take a look at SNDL real quick. Look, again, I think this highlights a couple things, actually. Number one, like I just said, I like TLRY the least because, hey, at least this is over more moving averages. This has actually been over the 8 moving average for so much longer. That's my cat on one of the scratch pads back there. What are you doing? Sorry about that. But yeah, this is now, I like us over that 20 moving average. That's a scary doji, and that's a beautiful answer to a scary doji right there. So that's cool. We're actually a lot closer to the 50 moving average than a lot of these are. And really, this is making me think if we can get over 53, we might even make a move to 160 tomorrow, and that would give us a nice little signal for a potential 170 target, actually, right? So I like the spacing between these moving averages, and again, the goal is as long as the S&P 500 keeps going up, as long as the Dow Jones keeps going up, and they both have really nice little channels that they can go up to, that should give our tickers a chance to go up their nice channels, right? So there's definitely a path. I think it's a little aggressive to think 180s, 190s, but yeah, I think 170 actually might be realistic here. Again, I think like I said with TLRY, I'm glad volume is at least at the average. You know that's my bare minimum requirement, right? But give me a little more volume. Give me a volume candle like this tomorrow, and I think that would give us that what did I say? That 160 that I think we can do. This is actually actually a closer MACD positive than TLRY. This is also a better divergence than, a better divergence than TLRY. And again, divergence just means two lines going away from each other. We want green to diverge up, not down, right? So that's happening on both of those. So I'm liking the daily here. Oh, I love that weekly. That's a good little channel all the way up to 165. That's pretty much on the line to what we just said, right? We said 170. So I love it right there, right? So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. MSOS, man. Again, I'm a little taken back that we got this big a percentage. Let's jump in and look at true leave real quick. Boom, monster 20%. Actually over the 50 and the 100 today, pretty much to the penny on our last resistance line, right? My next resistance up is all the way there. I think we could probably give a little respect to that. I'd keep 132, 130, sorry, excuse me, 532, 533 in your back pocket. But yeah, you break the 100, you're going to go to the 200. 200 is all the way up there. And that's why I kind of think that's a decent line. Hey, keep TCNNF, True Leaf, in your back pocket. What does Cura Leaf look like? Cura Leaf made an attempt at the 50. So I again, I think this looks like a lot of the stocks on this review. I love that volume. I know it looks like a small 1.3, but that's more than double what we were expecting, right? We were only expecting less than 600,000. 1.2 would be double. We got 1.3 million, right? So I like the volume. MACD and RSI don't look bad. That's actually the same negative 0.3 we just saw in SNDL. And again, there are some nice channels and solid. Hey, not too bad right here. Verano. Let's come take a look at Verano real quick. Nice. A little bit better than Curaleaf just because it got over the 50, right? Now it's making me believe that $1 is in sight. That's a 33%. Right? We're at 74 cents. I'm basically saying I think it's going to add another quarter right here, right? So keep Verano in your back pocket as well. And then let's wind it out with Cresco Labs. Trying to do what True Leaf did. Couldn't quite get over both of them. I would basically wait for 86 cents at this point. But yeah, you get over 86 cents and there's a lovely climb up. Where was 80? Yeah, 87. Maybe wait till 8, maybe even wait till 90. I don't think that would even be that bad a thing. But if you wait till 90, oh yeah, like I said, I think a buck 20 could be realistic there. So it actually looks like there's more for each of the MSOs. That looks good for MSOS. And hey, maybe it's worth a little 2x gamble and you go MSOX, right? Because hey, this is a 2x daily of MSOS. This gained 35% since the other one gained 17, right? That's just some math right there for you. So interesting right here. And again, one last time, I think to me it screams there is a real interest again in this bipartisan thing, especially with the markets calming down. All right, last but not least, we're gonna wind it out with high tide. And look, again, I like a couple things, but hey, I think one thing to respect is this one actually has the highest RSI of any of them, right? We were seeing RSIs in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, maybe even in the 60s as the high side, right? This is an 83 RSI on the daily. You know, I always say I got to at least start ringing the alarm bells at 80. The interesting thing is we're still diverging, right? It doesn't actually look like there's a flattening out happening. It actually looks like green wants to diverge and keep going up, right? It doesn't stop at 80. I've seen 99s and all that, right? But generally speaking, I think when I see a high RSI, I always get a little concerned, especially when we're so close to the last and the hardest moving average, right? Obviously, over them all is that one in the 100, but yeah, the 200 is still important, even if it's under, whatever, right? So difficult line, difficult 200 moving average line, little bit higher than ideal RSI, right? I think we're probably going to come back down to 230. I think we'll maybe lose like 8 cents here. Really, all I'm trying to do is give this a little healthy cool down so it could reattack it. Again, though, if my comment was right and this thing is still diverging and we have a positive MACD that's still diverging and volume's not even at the average, if we can just get average or a little bit higher, yeah, this thing can keep going and actually maybe make a shot at 250, right? So I think ultimately, I think the good, strong sector will do well. I just think the hindrance we have here is the moving average channels aren't as pretty, right? When we were looking at SNDL, look at the spacing between down here and up here, and then from here to here, and then from here to here, right? When we were looking at CGC, right, we're going hopefully from here to here, and then I don't think it will happen, but that is the shot is right there, right there. I was just looking at TCNNF. No, TCNNF, excuse me, True Leaf, we're trying to go over the 100 and go to the 200, right? So when the channel spacings are good, good things can happen. When they're just a little tighter, and you're now coming into like the harder ones, right? Like all of those are also happening from here to here to here, right? So it's just it's all that's happening here, all right? So might kind of sound a little bit more negative than the other ones, but really I think the other ones are just kind of catching up to this one, right? This one is at the harder moving averages. This one got to the high RSI, right? This one could use a healthy cool down, but hopefully will continue onward, right? I think the interesting thing here is this low RSI weekly, and I think that actually makes me think we might have a real good rest of the week and going into the next week, right? I just realized tomorrow's Friday, so that's kind of a dumb thing. But yeah, I think next week could be good, and I think that still goes with the thoughts that, hey, hopefully S&P 500 can go from down here to up here, right? That's pretty much the exact same from down here to up here, right? They were both in that 5,600 world, right? So high tide, I think the weekly is saying, let me say it as I say it. The weekly RSI is saying, hey, maybe we can ignore the daily, look at the divergence, look at the MACD, and hopefully we get the volume we need. I think that's a potential right there, right? And hey, I'll at least quickly say if this can get over 270, that's going to give me the belief that over 3 is realistic right there, all right? So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so, so much.